Jeffrey Epstein's brother wrote to Epstein asking if Putin had the photos of Donald Trump filleting Bubba. Such is Donald Trump's reputation in the world right now. Everyone assumed that the Bubba in question was President Bill Clinton. After all, that's what everyone, including Donald Trump, always nicknamed him as. But it turns out clarification has been made. Epstein's brother has clarified that the Bubba in question was not Bill Clinton, but was Ghislaine Maxwell's horse. Wait a minute. Does that mean that Putin might have photos of Donald Trump? No, I better not go there. It is a measure of the tumbling dice of the Epstein affair that people are prepared to believe the absolutely outlandish and the absolutely absurd and the absolutely revolting, well, because that's the reality. The reality is beyond anything that Lord Dobbs could have written in his epic work, House of Cards. The reality is beyond anything that could have been conceived by any Hollywood film director. Indeed, this script would never have been accepted by anyone as a realistic possibility that one man, a college dropout with no degree, could amass billions of dollars and could distribute them among such a vast panoply of people, stretching from Professor Noam Chomsky to Israeli Prime Minister and former head of the Mossad, Ehud Barak, and into the royal family of the United Kingdom itself, right onto the throne room of the United Kingdom itself, into Balmoral in the United Kingdom itself, into, it would appear, President Macron sitting on his throne in Versailles. It turns out that Jeffrey Epstein had the, I better be careful what I say after Candace Owens' experience, but had the closest possible relationship with little Macron, such that one day he's at the pyramid, presumably the pyramid above the Louvre. Maybe he was casing the joint, was at the pyramid and then headed for Versailles with Macron and his ministers. Why? Who was Jeffrey Epstein? I've got to tell you, I long assumed that he was just an intelligence agent of the Israeli intelligence service Mossad. And that, of course, he was. But he was much more important than that. He was a man operating at heads of state level. This man, Jeffrey Epstein, this degenerate pervert, Jeffrey Epstein, this man who had no means of surviving an unexplained wealth investigation, couldn't possibly have justified even just his townhouse in New York City, which he turned out to get for $1 single from the head of the ladies' underwear company, Victoria's Secrets, a man by the name of Leslie Wexner, who has many a story attached to himself, as Whitney Webb has peerlessly chronicled in both of her books, which I commend to you. This man, Jeffrey Epstein, was operating at heads of state level, at king level, throughout the Persian Gulf Arab countries. This man was in business with the royal families of the Persian Gulf, held a passport, a bogus one, presumably, but one that definitely got him in and out of the country without being noticed or recorded, of Saudi Arabia itself. This man, who was clearly collecting intelligence on every important person that ever crossed his threshold, and boy, did they cross his threshold over and over and over again. Ehud Barak, in a 3-year period, visited the townhouse, the house of sin, 38 times in 3 years. Do the maths. And stayed several days at a time, collecting the videos, transcribing the videos, communicating the videos and their content to his former masters in the Israeli government, no doubt. It's very clear from the tumbling dice of these 24,000 emails. You ain't seen nothing yet. They've held back things that are even worse and more damning than were available in the first tranche. 24,000 emails, and that's just the emails. There's thousands and thousands of hours of video. Epstein had a massage table in practically every room in his many-roomed mansions in New York and in Florida, and he had secret cameras in every single room. This man, Epstein, who learned the trade at the feet of Israel's largest, biggest, fattest ever intelligence agent, Robert Maxwell, father of Ghislaine Maxwell, his paramour for many years, who was buried on the Mount of Olives with every living president and prime minister of Israel present at the burial, and every head of Mossad still alive present at the burial, buried in the Mount of Olives, reserved for Israel's greatest servants. Robert Maxwell taught Jeffrey Epstein well. But just in case he forgot any of the lessons, well, Ghislaine was sent there as his paramour, where she remained for many years. Prince Andrew is just the tip of the iceberg, but it is an iceberg which has sunk the British royal family. As a long-time campaigner, as leader of the Workers' Party for a referendum in Britain on the continuation of the monarchy, well, Jeffrey Epstein, you did one hell of a job in making our case. The rottenness at the heart of the House of Windsor, the grubbiness, the petty larceny of the House of Windsor is fully explained, or definitely hinted at, by the emails that we have seen so far. Macron, the House of Windsor, the state of Israel. But of course, the greatest damage is being done in the Republic, the state of the United States of America. This man, Jeffrey Epstein, was no ordinary pervert. This man, Jeffrey Epstein, was no ordinary blackmailer. This man, Jeffrey Epstein, captured the disgusting predilections of everybody who was anybody in the American political class. Government ministers, ambassadors, opinion leaders, top television personalities. This man, Jeffrey Epstein, had lists upon lists upon lists. They say there's no lists. There's enough lists to sink the Titanic, because Jeffrey Epstein was a prodigious compiler of lists, not just of the powerful, but of those that might become powerful, and of those who could influence the powerful. This was a multimedia operation. This man, Jeffrey Epstein, was more comparable to a James Bond villain stroking a pussy on his lap, if you'll forgive the phrase. This was the head of some kind of smash. He did have a boss. He says so 3 times in the emails that we have seen, talking of the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly. The boss will be there. 3 times he refers to a boss. We still don't know exactly who the boss was, but if he was Jeffrey Epstein's boss, he must have been a very powerful man indeed. But of course, the United States' most powerful man, Donald Trump, is the man in the crosshairs for the moment. And how could he not be? This man, Donald Trump, campaigned that he was going to drain the swamp. Perhaps he did in ways that we could not and would not want to imagine. This man, Donald Trump, said he was going to publish the list. This man, Donald Trump, and his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, actually handed out folders, which turned out to be empty folders, and called all kinds of influencers into the White House to receive them. They all held them up to the cameras, though not the inside, which was empty. This woman, Pam Bondi, said she had watched the videos taken by the FBI from Epstein's New York townhouse, the $1 billion townhouse, and she said they were sitting on her desk, from which desk they mysteriously disappeared. This man, Kash Patel, this joker, who's the head of the FBI, my God, the criminals in the United States must be laughing at the very idea of this cross-eyed halfwit in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. He was on their tail, you know. This Kash Patel was going to destroy them all, but he has destroyed none of them. And he can't destroy any of them because Donald Trump is mentioned more in the Epstein files than any other single person. 1,360 references to Donald Trump are in the Epstein emails. And he is already revealed to have lied and lied and lied again about the true nature and the extent of his relationship with Epstein. He says he cut him off in the first decade of this 21st century. But there's every reason to infer from the emails we have already that Epstein was still around Donald Trump when he was president of the United States. Jeffrey Epstein repeatedly states, including to Donald Trump's amanuensis, Steve Bannon, that I was the only man that could have brought Donald Trump down before he even became president. And yet, if that "and yet" is not Otio's, it was under the presidency of Donald Trump that Jeffrey Epstein hanged himself in a New York penitentiary with paper towels, in a cell emptied for the purpose of his cellmate, in a cell where the 2 guards coincidentally fell asleep at the very moment that the suicide was done. A prison cell in which the cameras mysteriously, for 1 whole minute, stopped working. I think we can conclude several things already. Donald Trump will not survive this onslaught, this avalanche of tumbling dice. He may cling on to office, but he will not be in power. His party will lose its control of the legislature at the first available opportunity. And his idea of running again in 2028 now looks as absurd a prospect as him filleting Ghislaine Maxwell's horse. We can conclude that no progeny of his, of the 2 immigrants, one of them an illegal immigrant, that he married and had children with, that none of these children will ever be president of the United States. We can conclude that a president so damaged by the Epstein affair that he's put a target on the back of his closest supporters, the people who propelled him into power, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, and others, his loyal allies, have been abandoned, have been named and shamed and threatened. Such is the danger to Donald Trump from these Epstein files. Whilst Miss Lindsey Graham, the cross-dressing senator from South Carolina, is endorsed as a MAGA favorite by Donald Trump, even though Miss Lindsey was one of those who abandoned Donald Trump in 2020 and called him a very less than stable genius, if you get my drift. We can conclude already that MAGA will split now asunder between those who want to make Israel great again and those who meant it when they said they wanted to make America great again. Those who said America first and those who put Israel first. We can conclude already that nothing, no power on earth will stop everything now coming out. For any Republican to vote against opening these sordid files would be a death sentence, would be an act of political suicide on their part. No power on earth, let alone the GOP, laughingly called, can possibly now resist the full disclosure of the Epstein affair. And when everything is disclosed, God knows whose horse will have turned out to have been getting it. It is the mother of all talk shows, 500th edition. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.